Hello everyone, I cordially welcome you all to another video from the React tutorial series, and in this video we are going to discuss on states and props and how they are different but beneficial in their own way. So let's discuss what are state. So in the previous video we have already discussed about state, but I would like to revise on this topic because this will help us to understand the difference between states and props in a better way. So the state is a built-in object in React which is used to contain data that has been put in and which can be utilized and modified under different user interactions, system generated events, or even in different phases of the component lifecycle. Previously, states were only available for use in the class components and function components solely dependent on props and had no way to handle its own state data. But with the advent of React 16.8, hooks were introduced in React which benefited by allowing developers to use state and separate the logic for maintenance of state and side effects from the main component, hence making them stateless, which further increases code reusability. So state is basically a built-in object which is available in React and it helps us to store data on the component level. Okay, so that means suppose in case of a big e-commerce website like Amazon, if you visit the products page, you will see a lot of products listed down there. But you might not be interested in all the products. You might be interested in specific products depending on some scenarios. So you will apply those filters and the products will be displayed based on the filters applied. So when you apply those filters, where does that applied filter value get stored? That gets stored in the component level state. Okay, so that is how states are beneficial. Now let's discuss about props. So what is prop? In React, prop stands for properties. It is an object where the value of attributes of a tag is stored. Props are like arguments of functions in JavaScript or like that of attributes in HTML. Props are read-only in nature and thus they shouldn't be mutated. Props are mainly used to pass data from one component to another in React to create dynamic content. So unlike state, props stands for properties. So props cannot be mutated. They are majorly used for communication between parent and child component. Okay, let me give you an example. Suppose in the same example of a product page in an e-commerce website like Amazon, when you apply the filters, those applied filtered value gets stored in the local component state. But now for an example, there is a child component within that same page which needs to show how many filters have been applied. Okay, so do we store all those filter values in that component? No, simply we pass down the value from the parent products page to the child page where the values will be shown. Okay, so that is how we do it. Just remember, if this sounds very tough to you, just remember this thing. State is used to store component local data, and when that same data is passed from the parent to the child component, it is known as props. Okay, now let us see an example. We are back again on the code and we are going to now implement that similar thing which we have discussed. So I will reuse this code and make the coding example for this video. Okay, so first of all, I don't need this counter. What I will simply do here, I will just copy paste this thing. Here I have to make my own JSX which will handle state. Okay, so I have done it. Now what I have to do, I will just do some changes which will actually help you to understand props. So here I will write from parent app.tsx. Okay, and then in the counter I will change this code. I will not need these buttons and everything. I will just remove all this stuff. I will also not use state here. I will not also need this use state. So what I will do, firstly I have to define an interface iCounter. This iCounter will store a counter value which will be of type number. Here I will accept a prop counter data which will be of type iCounter. Once the data is received, I will just destructure the supplied value and I will show that on the JSX. And here I will write from, here I have wrote from parent app tsx. Here I will write from child counter.tsx. Looks good. So now what I will do, lastly I have to just bring in our counter component and show it here. So here I will write the counter component, and here I have to pass the prop. So here I will pass counter equal to counter. So this thing looks perfect. Now let's run the code and see if it's working as per our expectation. So I am writing npm start in the terminal and our app is going to start on the browser. So yeah, let's wait. So now you can see I have from parent app tsx0 from child counter tsx0. Now when I click on this increment button, you will see both these values are increasing. Okay. And now when I click on this decrement button, you will see both the values are decreasing. So how we are doing that? Okay. So let's understand the code. Firstly, in our parent app component, we have defined a useState0 which will return two things, the state value as counter and the method to update the state, that is set counter. Okay. And we here have two buttons, increment and decrement, on clicking which the state value will increase by 1 and decrease by 1 respectively. And here we are showing the state value by writing from parent app.tsx and counter. We are passing the exact same value to our child component counter, and within the child component we are just receiving the data, basically known as props. We are destructuring the data from the props and we are showing that on the browser. So what is happening, whenever you are updating the state variable, so it updates this state variable and it increases the value by 1 or decreases the value by 1 depending on what button you click. And when this value changes, a re-rendering is triggered. Now when the re-rendering is triggered, the value here gets updated and the same updated value is passed to the child component. And what will the child component do? It is basically a dummy. It just receives the data and show that thing on the browser. This is very simple. Now my question is, here how can you say what is state and what is a prop? So to the parent component app.tsx, the counter is a state variable which can be updated by the given setCounter method. But when we pass this counter data to the counter component here, and when this counter component, which is the child component, receives this data, it is known as prop. And from this data we can destructure our required materials and can display it on the browser. Sometimes this data is also used to do conditional rendering in React. So if you are not sure what is conditional rendering, just for now remember when we conditionally show something on the browser. Okay. So that is what we wanted to make and we have successfully made it. Now there is one more small thing which I would like to discuss with you. So let's get back to the presentation. So now we are going to understand what are the difference between state and prop. So state is mutable, props are immutable. And it is a very common thing, state is mutable, because when we use useState it returns us a method to update that state variable. But in case of props, there is nothing to update the props value, and you should also never try to update the props. Okay. Second, state holds components data itself, and props pass down the component data to child component as argument. We have already seen this. State can't be accessed or modified by child component. Props data can only be accessed by child component. So we have seen in the app.tsx we can modify the state data from the parent component itself. The child component have no right to the parent state variable. But when that data is passed as props to the child component can read the data and can show the data. But as I have said, props are immutable and so child component cannot modify the data. Okay. And the last point is states does not help in component reusability. Props make the component more usable. The core feature of React is basically to make the components reusable. So state being a local to the component itself, it does not increases the core component reusability. But when you have props, it increases the component reusability. You might have a question, how does that happen? Now I am again giving you a small example. In an e-commerce website like Amazon, you see hundreds and thousands of products, maybe millions of products, I would like to say. Now for millions of those products, Amazon doesn't create millions of cards. It creates the cards for once, and depending on the data received from the server, it iterates over the data received and generates the card. So for an example, if the server sends hundreds of data, it just uses the same card hundreds of times and generates the 100 card which you see on the browser. So this is what I mean by component reusability, okay? So I hope this is pretty clear now, what is state, what is prop, and how they are different but useful in their own way. So I hope you like this video. In case you like it, feel free to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. We are going to bring more videos in the upcoming future. And if you have any queries, doubts, suggestions or feedbacks, feel free to post them in the comment section. We are going to reply. So thank you for now. See you in the next video. Bye.